My suggestion is that we try to start globetrotting using the official list that I took from the United Nations website, showing 193 countries.
Yeah.
It's a sort of United Nations of psychodrama that one could have. And when we think about what Moreno said and wrote at the beginning of Who Shall Survive, then all countries should be concerned, and psychodrama should be spread in all countries. But how do you want to do about that? How are we going to start? What do you think?
Well, actually, I should like to go back to the Netherlands because things have changed enormously since 1941.
Mm-hmm.
When my family moved to England, to London. And for me, when I think of my childhood home, it's the Netherlands. It's not London. I wrote in my book, I felt alien. And I'm very critical of Great Britain. Not that everything in the Netherlands was so wonderful, but I was a child then, so I didn't see all the other things that come with knowing about a country. Just like the colonialism. Yes, I can talk about the colonialism in the Netherlands. All these Western countries had colonies in the East. I had a girlfriend in high school, who was half Javanese and half Dutch. And I mentioned in my book how shocked I was that her father took her away from her mother and told her when I don't know that she understood the word, but he told her that he took her away because her mother was a whore. Now, who talks that way to their children, he slept with her and produced this beautiful child.
Mm-hmm.
So, what does that make him? And he brought her to Holland, and his mother raised her. Interestingly enough, she was beautiful. Interestingly enough, she resembled her father's mother, although she was clearly Javanese as well. And I felt so badly for her that her mother had been painted in such an ugly way. She never knew her mother. She was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, how sad not to know your own mother, who may or may not be living somewhere in Java. And that's what the colonies have produced. Children who are neither Dutch, if they have to feel Dutch, she has to, because it was part of the Netherlands. But after the Second World War, all that split away. So what did that do to her identity? And I can tell you that the same thing happens in this country with the children who are half white and half African, black. And I remember doing a session with one of them. The mother was white, father was black, and he was a very significant movie maker, as a matter of fact, about the African Americans in this country. He was always interested in psychodrama.
Well, here in the United States, it would be a lot to talk about psychodrama.
This terrible, disgraceful history this country has. with the black people.
Mm-hmm.
And one girl, one of her friends, she brought to a session. And she also was half white, half black. And she confronted her parents on the stage in a psychodrama, empty chairs. And she said, "You didn't think much about me when you were having me, did you? Because I don't sit there, I don't belong there, I don't belong there, I belong in between on the floor." Very graphic demonstration.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from Europe, there was certainly much racism there. But in my family, racism was, it didn't exist. My brothers had friends from India at school, they brought them. We made them welcome. You could have come from Timbuktu as far as my family was concerned. You would be welcomed. So, and I think as Jews, we felt very strongly about this because we have experienced it and are experiencing it. That whole division of mankind into one race or another is hideous. We're all one people. I mentioned that in my book. When I came home from Europe the first time to this country, the immigration people give you a card. You have to put down race. You remember what I put down?
Yeah.
Human.
Yes.
I refused to be playing along with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a long story with me, especially brought to my attention because of my friend in Holland.
Well, we have already, you mentioned India, you mentioned Timbuktu. Timbuktu is in Mali, right? It's Africa. But the theme that you are treating is racism, actually. Mm-hmm. So what's next?
What is it?
What's next?
Well, what's next?
Yeah, what's next?
Well, persecution in general.
Where do we go?
Germany.
Germany. Well, now we have just one Germany again.
Yeah, we had two. And I went to East Germany and worked there. Yeah. And that was also scandalous, cutting Berlin in half. And I met, of course, a lot of good people in Germany I met one woman especially, she was also a member of one of my groups here, came from Germany. She was a pastor, a Lutheran pastor, and she declared to the group how much she suffered from Nazism, that in her country there would be something so inhuman, a phenomenon as the Nazis. She carried that burden on her shoulders all her life. And I didn't know at the time she was dying of cancer. And I think coming to the session here released some of that burden in her.
Well, have you stopped jumping?
Well, I'd like to talk about Australia.
Australia.
Yeah.
So Australia, it's the country number 6 in our list.
I was very warmly received in Australia because we had students, a married couple from Australia that had studied psychodrama in this country. And I was invited, I spoke in Sydney, and the University of New England, which was outside Sydney. I worked there, and then all the way to the west coast, Perth, Perth. Beautiful on the Indian Ocean, I guess.
When was it?
Long time ago. Because I left Merlin behind, and he said he was never going to happen again. He was going to go with me. So Merlin was already in my life. After most of this was after JL died, because I had to take care of him for so long, and he wouldn't even let me go to New Jersey, from New York to New Jersey, to work where I was invited. Oh no, I think he was afraid he would die when I was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So all this happened since 1974. As did going to Brazil and Argentina. No, we did go together, Brazil. We went to Argentina in 1969 together to a Congress, Psychodrama Congress.
Yeah.
But he wasn't with me in Brazil. There I went without him later, after he died. I want to go back to Australia a minute. They have this very tough outside hide, Australians, when you first meet them. Those people are descendants of criminals in England. They don't like to think of that. Whores and thieves and so on. Imprisoned by the British and then sent up to Australia because they wanted to get rid of them. So here are all these rough and ready people, and they talk that way, but they are sweet sugar inside.
Hmm.
And after I'd been to Australia, I came back to this country, to New Mexico, to do a session there with Ea Branham, one of my friends. And she had a book by D.H. Lawrence about an Australian man. I can't remember the title, and I read it. And he described the Australian male exactly the way I experienced them. Rough on the outside and tender on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Australia has always intrigued me because it's different. I mean, the greenery is different, the animals are different. It's really, for me, it was an exotic place. And the kangaroos and the koalas. And the koalas are very funny.
Mm-hmm.
They will sit up in the tree and they will defecate right there and urinate. If you're near the tree, you're a little unhappy. And they look so cute. And they're totally harmless. But
Mm-hmm.
that's their defense, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Well, have you finished with Australia? Because after Australia, you mentioned Brazil, and you mentioned Argentina. So, what about Brazil?
Brazil. Well, they were really very open-hearted and welcoming and warm, and they have excuse me, a tendency to talk a Brazilian embrace, which I find funny because there are other countries where people embrace, but apparently the Brazilians think that their embrace is bigger and warmer and more welcoming. Whatever it is,
It's probably because of the size of the country.
Probably.
The continental size of Brazil.
Yeah.
Not
Psychodrama thrives in Brazil more than in Argentina.
It's amazing. We have more than 5,000 psychodramatists already registered.
And I have Skyped message to them some years ago when they had their annual meeting. That was after I had been there, of course. Well, I thought Brazil was exotic too, and I have wondered about how they have treated the Africans. a very different attitude, I thought a different attitude towards the Africans. Not that sense of isolating them.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. There is a sort of effort, a consistent effort of integrating. And by the way, mixing races is something that is at the heart of the Brazilian culture. Now, myself, I am an example. Now, my wife is from African roots, and my children are mixed. So this is typical of the Brazilian.
So that always intrigued me.